Good day, grade 12 learners, and welcome to today's English First Editional Language lesson. My name is Sipati Ratebe, and this lesson is brought to you by Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Saipono Discovery Center and broadcast by Pakama Research and Development. Kindly note that we do have a WhatsApp interactive number, and the number is 064 748 8913. I repeat, 064 748 8913. You are more than welcome to use that interactive number for any clarity seeking questions. Right, let's have a look at today's lesson and the structure thereof. In today's lessons, we will basically focus on the following: a shorter transactional text, which forms our section C. Remember, in the last lesson, we dealt with section B, and now we're moving on to section C of English File Paper 3. How to approach answering the transactional text in this section. What are the requirements for section C? Let's quickly have a look at the requirements. The following categories will appear in your question paper. We will have category A, category B, as well as category C. What does category A entail? In category A, we have the following. We've got an advertisement. We also have an invitation. We have a flyer as well as a poster. What about category B? In this category, we do have diary entries, short message system, namely WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger. And what about category C? In this category, we do have instructions as well as directions. Let's have a look at the requirements for section C. Candidates will be expected to answer only one question in this section. 3 questions will be set, one from each of the given categories. You will be expected to choose only one shorter transactional text from the ones given. The body of your response should be between 80 to 100 words in length. This is very, very important. You need to adhere to the required length. Failure to do so will work against you. Write down the number and the heading of the text you have chosen. For example, 3.1, invitation card. No marks are awarded for pictures and sketches. Please note that most candidates in this section are tempted to give illustrations, sketches, and drawings. Remember that you will not be awarded any marks for that. Remember to plan, edit, and proofread your text, clearly indicating planning, and cross it out before submitting. Your shorter transactional text will be assessed according to a 20 marks rubric. Pay particular attention to the format, the language, as well as the register. That is very, very important. Let's now have a look at category A, which has an invitation card. We also have an advertisement. We do have a flyer, and lastly, we have a poster. These 4 transactional texts, they make up category A. And only one question will be asked from this category. You will be asked to write an invitation card or an advertisement or a flyer, and lastly, a poster. only one question will be asked from this category. And you will be expected to answer only one. But unfortunately, we have to learn and study all four of them because we don't know which of those four would come up in the examination. So let's have a look at the first one, which is the invitation. What is an invitation? That is a short text that requests someone's presence at an event or to do something. So if your presence is required at any other event, an invitation will be sent to you. Or if you are expected to come and do something at a particular event, an invitation will also be sent to you. But then, how do you go about writing an invitation? Let's have a look at that. The first thing that you need to do, which is very, very important, you need to read the question carefully and identify the subject of the invitation. Remember what we said in our last session, that it is very, very important that you understand the brief. You need to analyze the brief and come up with the keywords. And in this case, you need to identify the subject of the invitation. Is it a wedding celebration? Is it a graduation celebration? Is it a birthday celebration? Is it any other celebration, which would be clearly indicated in the brief? That would form the subject of the invitation. That is very, very key. Include the subject of the invitation. That subject which you would have identified, it is important that you include it in the invitation. You also need to include the date, the venue, and the time at which the occasion will start. Include RSVP. You need to give us the information or the contact details of the person that we need to contact to confirm attendance. That is very, very important as well. The dress code and any other relevant information. Some of the events, they do have a dress code. And if that is the case, you would definitely need to give us the dress code and any other relevant information that you might find necessary for that event. Let's have a look at the register. What register and what style? I would love to believe that you still remember what we mean by a register and you still remember what we mean by style. Just in case you forgot, let's have a look at the register. What do we mean by a register? This refers to the degree of formality, and it must be acceptable for the audience and the purpose. So it is very, very important that you understand the reason why you write the invite. And you also need to know your audience. That would, to a larger extent, inform your register. The invitation should be clear and straightforward. It should be concise and to the point. You don't have to write a whole lot of information that is not relevant to the invite. You need to be straight to the point. What do we mean by style? This refers to word choice, sentence structure, and the tone. This will also be influenced by the context of your brief. The content and nature of the invitation determines the choice of language used. So you need to understand the content of the invite. You need to understand the nature of the invite, and that, to a larger extent, would definitely determine the language that you will have to use in that invite. You've got to avoid the following. And I know that we've been saying this in all of our presentation. And it is important that you understand that you don't have to put all of these things. You need to avoid them. Please, 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 you need to avoid slang. You need to avoid colloquial language. You need to avoid contractions, abbreviations, and acronyms. Let us quickly have a look at a brief summary of what is expected of you so as to write a good invitation. The first thing that you need to take note of is the type of function or the nature of the event. That is very, very key. I spoke about it earlier, whether it would be a wedding celebration, a birthday celebration, or any other celebration. You also need to include the date of the celebration, the venue where the celebration will take place, and lastly, the time that you're expecting people to come. That is also key. The language should be suitable for the text. I repeat that. The language should be suitable for the text. Remember what I said earlier, that the text will actually inform the language that you would use in your invite. Right. You also need to RSVP. You will be giving us the contact details of the person who needs to be contacted so as to confirm attendance. If there is any specific dress code that you would love people to adhere to, you need to clearly indicate that in your invite. The style and tone, it is also important. The context will determine if it is formal or it is informal. Exactly what I said earlier. Right. So now that you've got the guidelines of how to go about writing an invitation, and you also have an idea of what an invitation is, let us now have a look at this activity just for practice purposes. I would expect you to engage with this activity and actually to write it in your book 4 at the end of this presentation. Let's have a look at that. This activity has been taken from our NSC paper of the year 2021. Let's have a look at the brief. This is how it goes. You have decided to organize a reunion for your family members who live in different parts of the country. Write out an invitation card that you will send to your family members. That is the instruction. Bear in mind, as you read the brief, you also need to take note of the length that is expected, 80 to 100 words. But let's go back to the brief. It says you have decided to organize a reunion for your family members who live in different parts of the country. So what is the purpose here? It's a reunion. For who? For family members. So these are the people that you know. These are not strangers to you. Do they live in the neighborhood? No. They live in different parts of the country. So the instruction says you've got to write out an invitation card that you will send to your family members. I would love to believe that we all have a clear understanding of what is required of us, the purpose of the invite, and the audience thereof. In this case, the purpose is the reunion for family members. Note, you don't have to include illustrations or drawings. That is very, very important. Let's have a look at the guidelines for that invite. You are kindly requested to use the given guidelines as you write that activity in your book 4. Invitation to a family reunion. The response may be in the form of a note, a personal letter, or an invitation card. The following aspects of format must be included. The format is very, very important here. The date on which you would love the reunion to occur, the venue, where will that take place, as well as the time. Type of function should be clear. We have already indicated that this is a family reunion. Language may be formal or informal. Remember, you will be writing that to family members. Like I said earlier, these are the people that you know. These are not strangers. So the language may be formal or informal. Full sentences are not necessary here. The following details may be included among others, and that is the name of the invitee, the dress code. Remember, I said some of the events require a particular dress code. If that is the case, you may include that. RSVP, the contact details of the person who need to be contacted if one needs to confirm attendance. So those are the guidelines that you need to use in writing our invitation. We are still on category B now, which is a diary entry. What do we mean by a diary entry? Before we get to that, let's have a look at the short message system, which includes WhatsApp or Facebook. Kindly give us a break of 5 minutes. We do have a technical error here, and I will be seeing you in 5 minutes' time. Thank you very much.
The road to success is to commit to yourself. In order for you to become who you want to become as a student, you need to commit to reading your books, to studying, to bettering yourself. I know it's not going to be easy. Actually, no one said it's going to be easy. But if you put in the work, the results will show in your life. Tap into your power. Sometimes you will feel like putting away your books, and not reading as much as you're supposed to be. But I want you to commit, because through commitment, there is infinite power.
right, welcome back. And thank you so much for your patience. I would also love to thank the technical team for having helped us in that regard. Let us quickly do a quick recap. I would love to believe that you now remember the activity that you need to do on the invitation, where you are expected to invite your family members to a family reunion. I have already outlined the guidelines that you need to follow, and the instruction is that you need to send that invite to your family members. Kindly write that in your book 4 and make it a point that your teacher assists you in seeing to it that you have written the correct invite. Right. We're still on category A. Remember, I have outlined 4 transactional texts that belong to category A. The first one is an invite. The second one, an advertisement. We do have a poster as well as a flyer. We are now done with the invite and we're moving on to advertisement, poster, as well as a flyer. What information should be included here when one talks of either an advertisement, a poster, or a flyer? The first thing that you need to do, you've got to have the headline or the title. What is it that you're advertising? What information do you need to bring to the attention of the community or the audience? The headline must capture the attention of the target audience. That is very, very important. It must actually make people want to read more about whatever product that you are advertising, about any other event that you might want the people to know of. So it might or it should actually make people interested in that. So your headline need to be catchy. You've got to use a catchy phrase, and you've got to use few words as possible. What else do you need to include here? That is the content. What do we mean by content? In a few sentences, you've got to give vital information to keep the attention of the reader. You don't have to give too much information on that. Just in few sentences, give the most important information that you want your reader to know of. If it's an event, what is the event all about? If it's business, what business are you offering? If it's a product, what product are you advertising? That will form the content of either an advert, a poster, or a flyer. What other information do we need to include here? We also need to include a call to action. And what do we mean by that? You've got to say exactly why people should contact your business and what you can do for them. Whatever that you're going to put in your advert or in your poster or in your flyer, it must make people interested in the business, in the event, in the product that you will be advertising. What is it that you will offer them that is extraordinary? What makes your business exceptionally good compared to the rest that the people still have? Why should people want to attend the event? That on its own calls for action. So say exactly why people should contact your business and what you can do for them. Inspire action. That's exactly what I've said earlier. Still on that, the last thing that you need to put is the contact information. Include contact information. The name of the person that people should contact, the date, the time, and the venue of the event. Regarding the contact person, you are more than welcome to also include the website address or the cell phone numbers or any other information that would make it easier for people to contact that particular person. What information can be included? Let's have a look at that. What information can? You can include this information. It's not like you must include it. You can include a slogan, meaning you've got to create a slogan. It also has to be catchy. Use those phrases that would catch the attention of the reader. And what is it that should not be included? Please, no pictures, no drawings should be included. No slang or colloquial language should be included. Let us quickly have a brief summary of the guidelines regarding an advertisement, a poster, or a flyer. The first thing that you've got to take note of is that you've got to have a catchy headline to attract the attention of the reader. That's a must-have. You must also inspire action. People should need to act on what you would have put on your advertisement or your poster or your flyer. Create interest in the product. Create interest in the business. Create interest in the event and the desire for that particular product or event or business. The target market should be clear. If it's a product, what's the target market? If it's an event, the nature of the event would automatically tell us the target of the people who need to be at that event. In this month, we will be celebrating June 16, and I would love to believe that some of you have already come up with some posters or flyers inviting the youth of the country to such an event. Yeah, I know that you have done that as well. You also need to take note of the language. The language may be formal or informal, but not slang. A description of the product, the company, the service, or the event. It is also important. So now that you've got a brief summary of how to go about writing an advert, writing a poster, or designing a flyer, all the necessary information that needs to be in that, I would like us now to focus on this activity. Use the guidelines that I've provided you with and attempt to answer or to respond to this activity. That is an advertisement. Your family wants to start a transport service for the learners to and from school. They have asked you to create an advertisement that will be placed in a local newspaper. Let's read that again. Your family wants to start a transport service. For who? For the learners to and from school. They have now asked you to create an advertisement that will be placed in a local newspaper. That is our brief. From that brief, we get the type of service that we want to offer here is transport service. We also have the audience here, the target group, that is learners or parents who have school-going children. And that service will take learners to and from school. That is our advert. Let's have a look at the instruction. It says, write out the advertisement to that effect. Note, do not include illustration or drawings. Let's have a look at the guidelines. Advertisement to start transport service for learners. The advertisement should have a catchy headline to attract the reader's attention. Like I said, your headline must make the reader to want to read exactly what is it that you're talking about. Create interest or create a desire to use the service. What is it that is special about your transport service that would make the reader have interest or desire to use that service? What is it that is not common regarding your transport service? What is it that you're doing different from the rest regarding your transport service? And that which is different is exactly that which will make the reader to want to use the service. So you've got to be very clear. However, you need to be very brief in that regard. Inspire action. Make the reader to want to use the service. And you also have to have contact details and areas of operation. If it's transport service for learners to and from school, you must indicate which areas would you be operating from. It is important that people get a clear understanding so that they know your point A and to point B. The target market should be clear. Remember, this transport service is meant for learners who would be traveling to and from school. The language may be formal or informal, but not slang or colloquial. Note, no marks will be awarded for illustrations. No marks will be awarded for drawings. That is very important. Let's have a look at the poster now. Activity on the poster. There have been a number of road accidents involving pedestrians in your community. You have decided to create a poster to raise awareness of road safety among members of your community. That is our brief. You have decided to create a poster. Why? To raise awareness of road safety. Your target here, your audience here, it's members of your community. And when you look at that brief, what informs you to want to create that poster? It is because there have been a number of road accidents involving pedestrians in your community. Right, so we have clearly analyzed that brief. The poster is about raising awareness of road safety, the target market, members of your community, and that has been informed by a number of road accidents involving pedestrians in your community. Good. Write the content of the poster. Do not include illustrations. Do not include drawings. Let's have a quick guide to how to write that poster on the road safety. The following aspects should be included in the poster, among others: an eye-catching headline or slogan. Catchy words and phrases should be used. Sufficient details on road safety measures. The language may be formal or informal, but not slang or colloquial. Note, marks will not be awarded for illustrations or for drawings. So, these are the guidelines you are to use when you are expected to write a poster. Do you see that? Eye-catching headline, catchy words and phrases should be used, sufficient details on road safety measures. The language may be formal or informal, but not slang or colloquial. The most important thing is that there should not be illustrations or drawings. So that is our third activity on category A. At the end of this presentation, you have to write an invitation card. You also need to do a poster as well as an advertisement. I would love to believe that you've got that. Now let's move on to category B. Category B has the following: a diary entry, short message systems or SMS as you may call it, which includes WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger. Let's have a look at the first one, which is a diary entry. A diary portrays the daily events and feelings of a person. That's what a diary does. It portrays the daily events and feelings of a person. Isn't it that throughout the whole day we go through different emotions? And it is for that reason that people normally keep a diary, to express whatever emotions that they would have experienced in whatever situation that they found themselves in. So a diary is a personal piece of writing where one's experience, emotions, thoughts are recorded and provide an opportunity to pour out. So whatever emotions, whatever feelings, whatever thoughts that you have, you pour them out on a piece of paper and you write about all of those. And that is the main aim of a diary entry, where you portray the daily events and feelings of a person. How to write a diary entry? Let's have a look at that. The day or the date, or both, must be written at the top of the entry. What do we mean by the day? Is it on a Monday? Is it on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday? You write that. If you were to write a date, you would then say the 6th of June, 2022. But if you were to write both, you would then write Monday and then write the date as well, 6 June 2022. That must be at the top of the entry. It is important because it forms part of the format. If you leave that out, that will affect your format mark, since that would be a format error. Provide a salutation. You may provide a specific name in that regard. I see most of you normally write, Dear Diary. Some learners would come up with a specific name as their salutation. The entry needs to be in the first person. Diary entry needs to be written in the present tense, unless if events already happened. That is very, very important. Must be in the present tense. How to write that? You've got to use simple sentence and short paragraphs. use emotive language to express opinions and feelings. Informal language, but not slang, may be used. The number of entries will be determined by the question. It is very important that you read the question and you understand how many entries are required for that. Let's have a look at the following exam tips. Make sure of the number of diary entries that you have to write. Is it 1 entry, 2 entries? The brief will clearly tell if you've got to write 1 or 2. The number of words, you've got to have 80 to 100 words. Please note that that has to be in total, regardless of the number of entries that you will be required to answer. If it's 1 entry, we're still expecting 80 to 100 words. If it's 2 entries, the number of words still ranges from 80 to 100. Must be written in the first person. Use words that describe feelings and emotions. The language thereof must be simple and informal. No slang, e.g. gonna, wanna, or cool. That is not acceptable. Let us quickly look at the summary of that. A diary entry must reflect a date for each entry. It must be written in the first place. It must experience feelings and emotions. Will be informal in style. Those are the 4 main things that you've got to take note of. So let's have a look at the activity for a diary entry. This was taken from an NSC paper for the year 2021. Let's read the diary. Let's read the brief there. The brief says, you have applied to study at the tertiary institution in 2022. The institution has sent you notification that your application was successful. That is our brief. And let's have a look at the question. The question says, write 1 diary entry how you felt when you received notification that your application was successful. How many entries are you supposed to write there? 1 diary entry. And what are you expected to do? We are expected to write how you felt when you received notification that your application was successful. Remember, your feelings might be negative. They might also be positive. You can also have conflicting emotions given this brief. What do I mean by conflicting emotions? You might feel sad and happy. Sad that you will be leaving your family, but happy that you are starting a new journey in your life. What about someone who received this notification after having lost maybe a parent or someone, a beloved one, or someone who played a major role in that person's upbringing? That would also bring conflicting emotions. When that person receives that notification, it might open up fresh wounds that the person might have experienced through the loss. So that is not a positive feeling, is it? No. And that is where a person can come up with conflicting emotions. And that person might feel that I feel happy, but also sad that my mom is not here to journey with me in this. So the person would have given us reason why he would feel sad and why you would be happy. That is where you come up with an elaboration of the emotion that is clearly being explained in our rubric. So let's have a look at that diary entry and the guidelines. We now need to move and see how we're going to respond to that diary entry. The guidelines thereof. We need to understand the feelings. These are feelings after, not before, feelings after receiving notification of acceptance to a tertiary institution. There must be one diary entry. The date and time must be reflected. The entry must express feelings after receiving notification of acceptance, how you felt after receiving notification of acceptance. Remember, I said feelings might be negative, positive, or we might have both positive and negative. But most important thing is that this is just one entry, and you will still be expected to write 80 to 100 words. The diary must be written in the first person. The language must be simple and informal. The tone must reflect suitable emotions. Right. So you need to do that activity in your book 4 as well. And your teacher will work with you in seeing to it that you have responded well to the brief. Let's now move on to category C. Category C is made up of directions and instructions. What do we mean by directions? Or when do we use directions? We use directions to tell someone how to get somewhere. I can see that some of you are like, but these days we don't need to know how to tell someone how to get somewhere because we do have Google Maps. People normally send location and we just follow that. But let me tell you, sometimes even if you use Google Maps or whatever location that would have been sent to you, you also get lost. You don't reach your destination. That is why it is important that we know how to tell someone how to get to any destination. Right? Yes. Let's have a look at how to write directions then. When you write directions, you've got to be concise and clear. Directions must be in chronological order. Refer to a specific direction. Indicate the approximate distance, and that has to be indicated in meters or kilometers. Please, we don't want to see centimeters, millimeters here. We've got to know how we measure distance. Give information on landmarks along the way. The words that we normally use when we give direction. These are just phrases that you may use as you give directions. Drive or walk down Sally Street, for argument's sake. Walk past Nelson Mandela Community Library. That would be a landmark. You follow the sign to KFC. That would also be a landmark. Walk in an easterly direction. Remember the 4 cardinal points? We've got north, south, east, and west. So in this case, you will be using the cardinal points. Turn left into any other street, like turn left into Walter Sisulu Street. Drive in the direction of. You would then give whatever landmark that you would love to use in that regard. At the second intersection, turn right. Cross over the third set of traffic lights. Or turn left. Or turn right when you reach the third set of traffic lights. Road curves to the left or road curves to the right. Where the road forks, turn left or right. Past the blue building, that would be your landmark. Yes, let us quickly have a look at the summary then of our guidelines in this regard. The first one, it may be in either point form or paragraph form. Your directions may take any form, point form or paragraph form. Must be in the correct order. The approximate distance, specific direction, and landmarks must be included. The most important thing is that you've got to use the approximate distance, you've got to use specific direction, you've got to use your landmarks as well. And complete sentences are not necessary. Let's have a look at our activity for directions. Your friend who lives in another city will be spending the December holidays with you. She will be traveling by train to your city and has asked you for directions from the train station to your home. That is our brief. Remember, the most important thing is that you understand the brief. And how do you understand the brief? You've got to know how to analyze it and come up with keywords. Here you've got a friend. This friend of yours lives in another city. And he or she has indicated that she will be coming over for December holidays. And she will be traveling by train to your city. She has now asked you to give directions from the train station to your home. What is the instruction there? Write the directions that you will give to your friend. You must include landmarks. You must include the distance and specific directions in your response. However, you need not include illustrations or drawing. It is also important that you take note as you try to answer this activity. In your response, be mindful of the expected length. And I'll tell you why I say that. Remember, your friend in the brief says he will be traveling by train to your city, and he has or she has asked you for directions from the train station to your home. What if someone says, from the train station, get into a taxi to Sikukuni village. Ask the driver to drop you off at Butterfly Primary School. And my home will be next to the school. Wow. What is wrong with that response? Do we have landmarks? Yes, we do. Do we have the distance? There's no distance there. Do we have any specific directions? No, we don't. Have you adhered to the length of the text? Definitely not. Because it's less than 80. So have you responded to the brief? Yes, but how well have you responded to the brief? That is where the problem lies. So it is very important that you must include the landmarks, you must include the distance, you must also include specific directions in your response. Right, let's have a look at the guidelines thereof. Direction from a local train station to your home. The directions may be in either point form or paragraph form. Directions must be in the correct order. Reference to distance, reference to specific directions, and reference to landmarks must be included. Do you now understand why I said the earlier response was not appropriate? Reference to all of these was not made, except for one or two landmarks. Now let's move on to our instructions. I believe that you're taking note of that activity as well. You will be expected to respond to it in your book 4 as well. And your teacher will assist you in seeing to it that you follow the correct guidelines. Still on category C, and now we're looking at instructions. When do we give instructions? In our everyday life, we carry out instructions in one or the other. But when do we give that? We give instructions when we describe how something should be done. As a learner, you are being given instructions every day by your teachers. Your parents also give you instructions to carry in your everyday life. And that is important, that you understand how to write instructions. When giving instructions, you need to keep each instruction short and simple. It has to be very short, simple, without losing meaning, by the way. Write each instruction as a step. Have only one main idea per step. Don't write a number of instructions in one step. Make it a point that each and every step has only one idea. And how will you make it a point that each and every step has only one idea? You've got to start each instruction with a verb. What is a verb? That's a doing word. So that on its own would tell what instruction a person needs to take. Number every instruction. That is very, very important. You've got to number it. Write the instructions in sequence. If I were to give an example here, what we mean by writing the instructions in sequence, you've got to follow a particular sequence. If you're giving instructions on how to bake a cake, you cannot start with having a cake already. You've got to start with the ingredients, mixing the ingredients before we have the final product. So your start and finish must be in a particular sequence. That is what we mean by saying you need to write the instructions in sequence. Let's have a look at a brief summary now of our guidelines. The first thing, when you write instructions, you must have a scenario. What instructions are you giving? They also need to be in a logical sequence, step by step, which is what I've explained earlier. You cannot start with the end product if you were expected to write instructions on how to bake a cake. Be concise and clear and start with a verb. That is what you need to do. So let's have a look at our activity here. Today we've got a number of activities that you've got to do. So I'm definitely sure that you will be kept busy in the evening and in the whole week. So you've got something to do for the whole week. Let's have a look at that activity. You have been asked to do a short oral presentation for a life orientation lesson on some of the things we can do that will definitely make a planet a cleaner and greener place for everyone to live in. That is our brief. Let's try to analyze the brief. What is expected of you? You are expected. It says there, you've been asked to do a short oral presentation for a life orientation lesson. On what? On things we can do that will definitely make a planet a cleaner and greener place for everyone to live in. That is the background of the brief. What is the instruction? What are you then expected to do? Write down a set of instructions to help young people stop global warming. So you are expected to come up with a set of instructions that would help young people to stop global warming. It is important that you understand the brief. If one doesn't know what we mean by global warming, one would definitely find it difficult to respond to this brief. Let's have a look at the guidelines. Instructions on how to stop global warming. The instruction may be in point or paragraph form. Instructions must be in a logical sequence. Instruction must say how global warming can be stopped. That is the most important key word in that, how global warming can be stopped. Like I said earlier, if you don't know what global warming is all about, definitely this will be a bit of a challenge for you to respond to this kind of instructions. But if you do know, you will definitely know how to go about it. Remember in our last session when we did section B, we also explained the weighting as well as the rubrics that we use for longer transactional text. Now, let's have a look at the weighting as well as the rubrics that we are expected to use for shorter transactional text. What you've got to remember here is that shorter transactional pieces will be assessed according to the following criteria. We do have the content, planning, and format, which is out of 12 marks, and that forms 60% of the piece. We also have the language, the style, and editing, which forms 40%, and that is out of 8 marks. In total, we have 20 marks for section C. That is our rubric for shorter transactional text. In our last session, we explained the content mark as well as the language mark. Remember, whatever mark that the teacher would award to your transactional text, that is feedback. And I said last time, it is important that you understand the rubric. Because if you do understand the rubric, You would then understand why you have been awarded that particular mark. If, for argument's sake, you are being awarded 5, you need to understand why you were being given 5. If you are being awarded a 12, you also need to understand that. So it is important that you also understand how to use the rubric. Like I say, that is feedback. Right. Let's have a look at our recommendations regarding section C, which is our shorter transactional piece. The first thing that you need to do across sections, this is not just applicable to section C, it is something that you need to do across sections. That is section A, which is your essays, section B, longer transactional text, as well as section C, which is shorter transactional text. What you need to do, you need to analyze the text. You need to identify keywords and stick to the guidelines given. If you say what guidelines? In today's lessons, I have given you guidelines for each and every transactional text that we have done, starting with the invitation card, the advert, the poster, the diary entry, directions, as well as instructions. So you need to stick to those guidelines. You also need to write legibly. You've got to know that bad handwriting works against you. A good handwriting would definitely work for you. So make it a point that you write legibly, that your teacher or whoever will be engaging with your work will be able to read exactly that which you would have written. The length of writing. Read and adhere to instructions. For this section, you are expected to write 80 to 100 words. So your response should be between 80 and 100 words. Anything less than that is unacceptable. Anything beyond that is also unacceptable. So follow the instruction. You need to pay attention to spelling. You also need to pay attention to punctuation. And the only way to do that is when you proofread your work, edit your work, and make the necessary corrections in that regard. Edit the writing piece thoroughly. You've got to check it at least 3 times. It is important that you edit your work. Always draw a line through all rough drafts. If whatever piece that you have written there is a draft, it is important that you draw a line over it. If you don't draw a line over it, your teacher or any other person who would be expected to mark your work would then mark a draft. So draw a line over it to indicate that that is a rough draft. The draft must be edited so that it does not look like an identical neat copy. So your draft and the final piece, there must be a difference. That is what we mean by saying the draft must be edited. And there should be a difference between a draft and a final piece. Formats for transactional writing pieces are still a problem. It is for that reason that we need to study all formats. In today's lessons, I've given you format for an invitation, a format for an advert, a format for a poster, a format for a flyer, a format for a diary entry, a format for direction, as well as a format for instruction. if you can reflect on those formats, you would realize that each transactional text, it has its own format. We cannot use one format for the other. So it is very, very important that you use the appropriate format for the different genres. Because if you don't do that, that will affect your format mark. Coming to sentences, avoid writing too long sentences. If one writes too long sentences, the likelihood is that you would end up making mistakes. You would end up making word order mistakes. You would end up making mistakes in the whole sentence. It could be spelling mistakes or any other mistake. So keep your sentences simple and short. Slang language. The use of slang language is not allowed across the sections. Not only in section C, in your section A, in your section B, as well as in your section C, you are not allowed to use slang language. So those are the recommendations that you need to take note of. But what we also need to be aware of, especially in section C, is that you do not score marks for illustrations. Neither do you score marks for drawings. So if you are being asked to write an advertisement, you don't have to draw any advert there. You don't have to come up with illustrations there. Even if it's a poster, you don't have to come up with drawings and illustrations or sketches. If it's an invite, you don't have to take 50% of the time, drawing that invite. If it's a flyer as well, you don't have to spend most of the time being engaged in the drawing of that flyer. Why? Because a visually attractive text with no writing on it will score very low marks. Remember, the aim is to assess the learner's writing and language skill. The aim is not to assess how good you are at drawing. The aim is not to assess the illustrations or the sketches that you would put on paper. The aim is to assess your writing and your language skill. So stay away from coming up with illustration. Like I said, especially in section C. This is a section where we find a number of illustrations, a number of sketches, and a number of drawings. Beautiful drawings for that matter. However, they don't work for you because no mark will be awarded for you for having given us a beautiful drawing. The rubric does not cater for that. Remember, we use the rubric and nothing else outside the rubric. So, grade 12 learners, take note of that. I would still say paper 3 carries the highest mark. We all know that. And what is the mark thereof? It's 100. So more time should be spent on learning creativity, practicing and improving writing skills and formats of transactional text by using past papers to practice. In this presentation, we have used past papers for all the activities that I've given you. And those are the activities that you need to use for practice purposes. The second thing is that you have all received study guides for English First Additional Language on writing essays and transactional text. You are advised to use those study guides. They are really helpful and they will definitely assist you in responding to any question in paper 3. Like I said, it be an essay, it be a longer transactional text, or a shorter transactional text. All that you need to do is to refer to the study guide, and of course, use today's presentation as well to assist you in that regard. So that brings us to the end of this session. I would like to wish you everything of the best in your year ahead. Thank you for watching this lesson. Please remember to sanitize. Remember to wear your mask. You also need to maintain social distancing and keep safe. See you next time, and goodbye.